Hey, what's up? Good morning. It is Wednesday. I hope my stream is all right. Um, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tremaine Wills. I am your go to financial strategist. Today, we're going to be talking about how you can boost your savings quickly without feeling overwhelmed, and really start to feel some movement and see some movement inside that savings account. So, if that is something that is useful to you, stay tuned because we'll be diving into some of those key strategies. So, let me know in the comments. Let's get some engagement going here. Would you feel safer if there was a specific dollar amount in your savings, right? And if you're comfortable, let me know in the comments what that number is. All right. So, first, as we're talking about shifting to build that savings a bit more quickly, the first thing we have to address is the mindset around how you can make this happen, right? I can give you all kinds of strategy tips, all that great stuff to make it happen. But if you are not thinking correctly about how to make this happen, the strategy, whatever I say, is not going to matter. So there's a few key things we have to talk about. First, we need to get in this zone of paying ourselves first, right? The bills will be paid, all the things will be taken care of. But if you continually wait until after you do all of those things, typically we will bloat and stretch our budget, right? Because we continue to delay, and put off paying ourselves. So, one of the very first things we need to do is shift towards okay, I'm going to pay myself and I'm going to do it before I get inundated with all the other things I have to do. So, you'll find that a lot of people are like, I got to pay this bill, right? And oftentimes payday comes and everybody else gets taken up, but not you. So if you want to be able to save faster, you have to treat saving and investing, paying yourself like it is a bill. It is an obligation, is a responsibility that you have to take care of. Um, One of the things that you can do to get started is to set aside a percentage, right? So it may be hard, especially if you have inconsistent income, right? So maybe you are an entrepreneur, freelance, or whatever that case might be, and you haven't got to a place where there is a consistent paycheck. You can get started by using a percentage to pay yourself from every income stream that comes in. And that could be, you could start as little as 1%, right? But of course, we want to start with, or we want to grow to a place where maybe we're paying ourselves 5, 10%, up to 30% of whatever income's coming in. So that way we have some money set aside and we're not always having to hustle for the next dollar. So, and the reason we like doing a percentage is because it doesn't matter what the amount is, right? You could have a really great paycheck or bonus period, and that check might look like $50,000, right? But there could be another instance where the income that comes in might only be 1,000. And so if you say, hey, every time I get paid, I'm going to set aside $500. Well, setting aside 500 in relation to 1,000 seems like a big chunk, especially if there are other things to cover versus getting 50K in and only setting aside 500, right? That probably doesn't match um how much you should be setting aside relative to the goals. So using a percentage based system allows you to be consistent no matter how small or how large the income that comes in. So, um shifting to this mindset is going to help you position yourself to always pay yourself first no matter what happens. And many platforms allow you to do, well, maybe not many. We have a really good relationship with Relay Financial, and especially for my folks who are small business owners. I'll drop the link in the description. But what it does is it allows you to set up automated transfer rules that are based on percentages, so that it doesn't just have to be a dollar amount that you set aside. So and you can automate that where you don't have to come in, every time you get paid to make that transfer. And then another good thing that you can do is nickname accounts. So when you're thinking about um, the reason why you do things and becoming more motivated about it, having nicknames on the accounts that get you excited to contribute to them is a positive way to make sure you're getting to a position where you're starting to reach those goals. So sometimes we hear emergency funds or rainy day fund, and it just sounds like, ugh, right? I don't want to do this. But if you shift the name of that account to freedom fund or travel fund or whatever the purpose is of the goal, then you get excited every time you allocate money in that direction. So this is a great way to um really identify, hey, what this money is for, and then condition yourself to be excited to save, right? Some of us, sometimes we just think about saving, it feels like punishment, right? But if we put ourselves in a position where it's exciting because it's pushing us closer to whatever goal we're trying to reach, that can be a huge shift for how we're going to reach that savings milestone. So that's the first part, right? We want to have the appropriate mindset towards this so that it is not burdensome to do it and we get excited about whatever goals we are aiming to reach. So, here are I got 7 tips for you to help you boost your savings quickly. And so, depending on when you're watching this, if you're watching here live or if you're watching this in the, second quarter of 2025, then we're at a period in our economy where there feels like some uncertainty, right? There's some unease. We don't know what's coming. And you may be feeling like, okay, I need to get a little bit serious about boosting my savings. So these are some things that you can do right now that are going to help you boost that savings. Number one, cut the spending. Okay. And oftentimes we're trying to look for anything except cutting back. But honestly, that is probably one of the fastest ways for many people to find money to save, right? Many of us have unused subscriptions, and especially if you have an iPhone, sometimes I think Apple just charges random things, and it's like they won't know, right? Because there's so many different things that are on auto renewal, and if you're not checking and paying attention to it, then that's easily a couple $100s a month, often, where subscriptions are just renewing and you have no idea. So, canceling those unused subscriptions, and this could even not just be apps and things that you're using, but also gym memberships, anything, right? Maybe even Amazon. That might be taboo to say out loud, but looking for ways to cut money through subscriptions is going to be a great way to find money to boost your savings quickly. Delivery fees. I know convenience is a wonderful thing, right? But if you start to look to see how much you're spending for that convenience, um, especially on apps like Uber Eats and DoorDash, oftentimes you'll see that the cost to get the food to come to you doubles the price you would have paid if you just went and got it yourself, right? Now, depending on where you are and how you're earning income, um, the cost might be justified if you're making more money in other areas with your time. But if you're watching this video, chances are you're not in a position where it makes sense to pay delivery fees when you need to be focused on saving money. So, cutting those delivery fees and eliminating that, at least for a season where you're hyper focused on saving, is going to be beneficial. Number two, the next thing you can do is do a no spend challenge. So I've seen these quite often, particularly like the first of the year when everybody's on their new year, new me, right? Their kick. And then by this time of the year, it kind of fizzles out. And so you can do a no spend challenge, and it can be whatever length of time you want. But truly not spending will help you see, okay, how can I leverage the resources that I have? And so if I do a 3-day no spend challenge, that means I'm not eating out, I'm not buying anything online, right? And that could be 3 days, 7 days, 30 days, right? You pick the timeline, and then everything that was not essential that you probably would have spent money on, now that money can go into a savings account. And that's going to help you boost your savings in as little as 3 days or 30 days, depending on how long you do this no spend challenge. The next tip number three, sell what you are not using. So a few years ago, I actually went through this process, and I went through my closet and I sold a whole bunch of stuff on Macari. I'm not sure if the platform is still around, but I probably should have checked that before I got on here. But that was a platform I used to sell shoes, clothes, and I made a couple $100s on there just getting rid of things that I didn't wear anymore. And so you could do the same thing, right? It's kind of think of it like a yard sale, right? But you can do everything online. You don't actually have to put everything outside. So this is a great way to clear clutter, one, but then also turn some of those unused things into cash. Number four, you can pick up a temporary side hustle. So, if you have a little bit of flexibility in your schedule and there's an opportunity for you to maybe Uber or DoorDash, right? Some of those apps you might have been spending money on now turn into opportunities for you to generate income, or even just, working at a retail store for a particular period of time. And the window could be short, right? This doesn't have to be a, I'm gonna keep this side hustle for everything, but it could be a 30 to 90 day um cash infusion strategy for the sole purpose of, hey, all this extra money that I have, I'm going to put it into my savings. You can use cashback and roundup apps. So I bank with Ally for my personal finances, and they have roundup savings. And every so often, some money is moved from my checking account into my savings account. And this is a great strategy to save money without even think about it. And then you layer that with other strategies that we're talking about here, right? There's also apps that, depending on where you purchase groceries and things like that, you can get rebates for purchases that you were going to make anyway. So if you're spending money on those expensive eggs, right? There's likely that there's an app that will give you some cashback rewards or things like that in order to help boost that saving. So I have a friend who did this like religiously, and she was using the Ibotta app. Ibotta. I'll link it below in the description. But it's a great way to get rewards, cash back for purchases. Now, the key here is purchases that you were going to make anyway. Okay. So, this is not a strategy where you are buying things for the sake of getting the points, but it's like, hey, you were going to buy these groceries anyway, these specific things. And so, by chance, if there happens to be some cash back associated with it, great. Number six. So this is one that we talk about with clients, even without thinking about intentional saving, but it is using the 24-hour rule before making purchases. So what this does is it helps us eliminate impulse spending and impulse buying, by giving us a chance to pause and think about, okay, do I really need this purchase? And if it's not something that's absolutely necessary, taking 24 hours to really sit and think about it now might put you in a position where, the money that I was going to spend on that thing, I don't really need it. Now I can put this money into savings, right? So you're repurposing and shifting income that would have been going out of the door, now going into a different container, a different bucket that's still part of your assets. And then the last tip number seven, is a 30-day sprint, a 30-day savings sprint goal. So let's say, for example, right? And maybe you'll start this March 1, or at the not March 1, May 1, or at the top of whatever the next month is when you're watching this, where you decide, okay, by the end of these 30 days, my goal is to save X amount of dollars. And it can be 500, 1,000, 2,500, whatever is a little bit of a stretch for you that will push you beyond your typical comfort zone. So that way you can start to get creative and think about, how can I make this happen? And so if you have this saving sprint in place, then you start to think about, what things can I sell, right? You go back to these previous six strategies I talked about, and it all accumulates together, where now you're not only saving for the sake of saving. It's like, hey, I want to reach this savings goal that I set. So being able to cut back on the subscriptions and selling any unused things that, any unused items or resources in my home that I'm no longer benefiting from, or um, getting that part time side hustle, right? All of that savings now combines together, and you're able to push yourself to reach whatever milestone you hit. Right. We get really creative. I can speak for myself. I am super competitive. Right. And so when I am on a timeline, a time crunch to hit a particular deadline, that's when the juices start flowing. It's like, how can I still make this happen? And for many of us, if you're really committed to whatever savings goal or your desire to boost your savings quickly, you will find that you turn into a problem solver, right? How can I make this thing happen? So, um, putting yourself in a 30-day sprint for a savings goal is going to allow you to really see, okay, what can I come up with that is going to stretch me to help me reach this goal I want to hit? All right. So now let's get to top 10 questions, right? Every time I do one of these, I like to answer some questions about um, things that are related to the topic. And so we're talking about boosting our savings quickly. So the first question: what is a realistic savings goal to start with, right? And I hear this often. And so I'm going to say it depends, right? But I do want to give you a number. So, depending on your history with being able to save and leave money in savings, what will be a win for you may be a lower threshold than other people. So, a good number to start saving, it might be 500 bucks. If you've not been able to keep $500 in your savings account, starting with just $500 could be a really good win for you, right? So that might be where you start. Maybe your threshold is $1,000, right? Whatever number you decide, it needs to be something you feel like is actually attainable for yourself, but it also should stretch you just a bit so that you're able to build that savings. Because we have to have a little level of discomfort in order to switch gears so that we are committed to whatever changes we're putting in place. So, um, if you're getting started in this, the first milestone might be 500 or $1,000, but then ultimately we want to get to a place where we have that 3 to 6 months of emergency savings in our savings account. And when we're talking about 3 to 6 months, we're talking about how much does it cost you to do everything that you typically do each month, and then multiply that by 3 or 6, and that's how much you want to have in your savings account. Question number two: how much should I save each month? So I opened up with talking about, maybe you're saving a percentage of your income. And this is where the core of this comes from. If you're just getting started, consistently saving any percentage is a great start. Now, we can't stay in babyland forever. And so we want to graduate to a place where we're consistently saving 10, 15, 20. If you can get to a place where you're consistently saving 30% of your income, you will be positioning yourself well to be able to go into retirement and not have to continue trading time for money. So, all of this is predicated on, are you making enough money, right, to cover your expenses? And then two, um what do you have in place to be able to save consistently, right? So that could look like automated transfers. It could look like, maybe you have a money day every week where you're paying attention to what's happening in your finances. So, how much should you save? Ideally, we want to get to a place where 20 to 30% of our income is how much is being saved. But if you're just getting started, any consistent amount is a good place to be at. Question number three: should I save if I still have debt? Yes. Yes. Right. And so for many of us, the reason we have debt is because there wasn't any liquid cash available to do whatever we decided we wanted to do with the debt that we leveraged. So when you get to a place where you have sufficient cash reserves, you lean less on debt. But if while you're paying off debt, you don't build the cash reserves, should something happen, then you go back to debt. So it's important that while you are paying off debt, you are also building those cash reserves. So even if you have debt right now, yes, you still should be saving, but the priority in which you aggressively pay off your debt is going to be determined by how much money is in the savings account. So, right now, if your focus is boosting savings, then the focus should be, okay, I'm going to pay down the debt that is absolutely like the minimum payments, right? And I'm going to shift my attention to all extra dollars going into the savings account. But once I build that savings to the place where I feel confident and moving back to paying that debt off aggressively, then I can shift my focus and I can reduce how much I'm saving so that the extra dollars can pay off the debt. Question number four: where should I keep my savings? So I like high yield savings accounts, and high yield just means higher interest rates. These are becoming more and more common, which rightfully so, right? You want to get paid more money that is sitting in your financial institution. And so we use Ally, ALLY. I'll drop a link in the description for a high yield savings, great customer service. Now, there's lots of other places that you can choose. What you want to pay attention to is the interest rate more than like 0.025%, right? Because commonly we have seen typical brick and mortar institutions where they're not really paying much, right? But you want a high yield savings. And right now we're seeing rates somewhere between 3, 4%. And that's pretty good for how much it costs to access money right now. So Ally, ALY is a great place, or any other high yield savings. And if you just do a quick Google search of high yield savings, some will come up. But if you want to follow my recommendation, the link will be below this description. Question number 5. What is the difference between emergency savings and sinking funds? Both are fantastic. Emergency savings is money that is set aside just in case something unexpected happens. Sinking funds is money that's set aside with the anticipation of an upcoming lump sum that is due. So, for example, let's say instead of paying your car insurance every month, you have it set up on annual payments, or um semi-annual payments, right? And so typically when you do things annually or semi-annually or even quarterly, right? You can get a discounted rate for not doing monthly. And so what you would do is every month you would set money into your sinking fund as if you were paying that bill, but it would be building so that when it was time to pay that bill, the money would be there, right? And oftentimes we'll do this when we're saving for um like even vacations, or you might be saving for down payment on a house, right? That's kind of another way to think of it, is that I know a big payment is coming up, and instead of disrupting the natural flow of how I manage my finances, I'm going to set a little bit of money aside every pay period so that when it's time to pay this bill, the money is available. So that's the difference between emergency savings. These are for unexpected expenses, and a sinking fund, which is for an expected expense that you know is coming, that you are setting a little side of money for. Question number 6. How do I avoid spending what I have saved? Now, this is a great question. When I was first getting started on this journey, I had a savings account that I did not have a online access to, and I had to physically go to the branch to get the money. It was in a separate state, right? That's how intentional I was being with making sure I didn't spend everything I had. And so, one of the things that you can do is separate the money that is being saved from the money that you are spending. So that might look like a separate financial institution. It might look like not accessing the online portal. It could look like, not opting for a bank card, right? If you know that you are not disciplined enough to leave the money in savings, you can put barriers in place so that makes it more challenging for you to access it. Many financial institutions now like us to bundle and have our checking and savings at the same place, right? It's convenient. You can do online transfers really simply, but when you are not disciplined yet, it also makes it easy to move the money when you're trying to save it. So you can put your own barriers in place so that it's more difficult for you to access the money so that the balance can actually grow. Maybe you don't have to be as extreme as I was when I was starting this over 10 years ago, where my financial institution was in a different state, but it worked for me. That helped me build the discipline. It's like, are you going to drive several hours to go get this money? Thinking about, like, I don't need it that bad, right? Question number 7. So, this is a common one, especially for entrepreneurs. What happens if I have inconsistent income? So, what if, you know, every month is not the same paycheck? This is where you can go back to saving percentages, right? This is where you can identify, okay, I know for sure that 2, 3, 5% of all income that comes in can go into a savings account. And that way I don't have to worry about, oh, I said it was going to be $250. $250 is not available because I have to do XYZ. Okay, the percentage amount is, right? You can make that work. Question number 8. How can I save for multiple goals at once? So, a great way that we have seen this work is having separate accounts for each goal. Now, the other thing to do is you have to prioritize what is actually important, right? Because trying to save for 5 different things stretches the money that's available, the discretionary money to be able to save. And oftentimes you'll find that you don't reach any of the goals. But if you can cut back to, okay, the top priority is boosting my savings, and then secondary priority might be getting some money set aside for travel, for a desperately needed vacation. And then third priority might be, I really want to have money for this home I want to buy in 3 years, right? Knowing that the priority is boosting your savings quickly, in the moment, all extra money might be going to boosting that savings, right? And then you might have specific dollar amounts on a cadence, right? Maybe every pay period, 50 bucks goes into travel savings and 100 will go into down payment savings or whatever the case might be, right? But your concerted effort and your attention, your focus is on, hey, let me reach this, boost my savings goal that I want to get to. And all the extra money goes here where we have a routine, a cadence for everything else, right? So this goes back to treating this like a bill, because it you still are going to have to pay utilities and rent or mortgage, car note, right? Those are other things that still have to be paid. And so if you identify savings goals as bills that have to be paid, now you start to get on a cadence where, hey, this is something that has to fit into the budget, but everything extra can go towards me boosting that primary goal faster. Question number 9. Should I invest my savings to grow it faster? The answer is no. Okay. Your savings, your emergency savings, is not for investing. This should be money that you have access to, that does not have to wait to be sold so that you can handle an emergency. The intention is for it to be liquid so that you can access it. Now, anything beyond your emergency savings, absolutely invest it however you want. But we shouldn't have to sell our positions in our investment portfolio in order to take care of an emergency, right? Because what we might find happen is that because we have liquidated a position too soon, now we have ruined our investment return and we might lose money. So, having the capital available liquid allows you to not impact your investment strategy and potentially create a loss, because you're touching the investment before it's time. All right. And then question number 10, what if I don't make enough to save? You need to track your spending. So this is going to take you to, you have to go back and create a budget that is actually realistic based on the income coming in. Now, it might be real, right? You might be underemployed and you might not be making enough money. And in that regard, you got to make some more money, right? That could look like it might be time to get a new job, second job, whatever the case might be. Um, and you really have probably stretched every dollar. But for, I would say, 85% of people, that's not the case. The case is you need to cut out the fat in your budget and reprioritize saving. So if you find that you actually are not making enough money, the ends just do not meet, then you have to go make more money. And for all of us who are watching this, it does not hurt to go make more money in order to be able to reach the goals that you want to reach. All right. Now, some mistakes to avoid while you are on this journey. You don't want to wait until everything is perfect to begin saving, right? Chances are it's not going to be perfect. You have to position yourself to create a system of money flowing wisely through your hands and into your assets. Um, Waiting until, oh, I'll wait until I got an extra 400 bucks, right? Our habits don't just magically change when we make more money. We manage and we learn to manage based on whatever income level that we are, and those habits carry over into more income. So this is not something that just turns on when you come into more wealth. Another mistake to avoid is not tracking your income and not tracking your expenses, especially if you are a higher income earner. It could feel like, oh, I make six figures, I don't need to track it, the money's there, right? But you got taxes. And then oftentimes when we make higher income, we have higher lifestyle expenses, right? That creep sets in. So you want to track those expenses. Um, you don't want to rely on one big transfer instead of automating small ones, right? So, for example, you don't want to say, oh, I want to hit a savings goal of 10K and then decide you're going to wait until you got 10K available to put it in your savings account. You can hit 10K faster or easier if you have a series of small transactions, right? So maybe it looks like 100 bucks, 200 bucks, right? And then multiple transactions will add up and get you to that ultimate objective. All right. And then the last mistake, of course, is we don't want to dip into our savings for non emergencies, right? And it can be super tempting to decide you want to attend an event or, whatever the case might be. And the money is just not in the budget. And so you're like, oh, I got this money in my savings. No, it's not an emergency, right? We want to kill that bad habit before it takes root. Um, and if it has already taken root, because that's something you've been accustomed to doing, you can unlearn that. And that's what activities like this, trying to intentionally boost your savings, can do, and shift you from whatever poor habits we might have developed that get us in this predicament. Okay, so that is all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this session, like, subscribe, let me know in the comments. I do want to get back to folks. Like, if you have any questions about saving, let me know in the comments. I reply to every comment. Just so that you have what you need. If you want money tips like this delivered to your inbox every single week, you can click the link in the description to join my weekly newsletter. We send out information on grants, business finances, personal finance, general entrepreneurship things that will help you manage money better. And if you'd like a one-on-one call to see how we can work together to help you manage your money better, tap the link in the description and book your complimentary session. And I will see you all during the next live.